When President Sam Houston designated the city of Houston the capital of the Republic, and that's capital with an A, the town boasted a half-built capitol, that's capital with an O, to house the government of Texas. This is the story of that building at Texas and Maine. The capital, the seat of government. Texas had a few before Houston, Texas. From Los Adayas, San Antonio, and Nacogdoches in Spanish Texas to Saltillo and Monclova in Mexican Texas. Then in 1835 and 36, we had San Felipe de Austin, Washington on the Brazos, Harrisburg, Galveston, Velasco, Columbia, though not in that order. By the time 1837 rolled around and Houston was the capital of the new republic, it was the seventh in just 2 years. Houston was a gloppy, muddy mess in the spring of 1837. According to John James Audubon, who visited that year, the almost built Capitol building was par for the course in the infant town of Houston. Houses were half-finished, roofless affairs, and some people just lived in tents. There was a lot of liquor around and rowdy loafers to be found. The free-roaming pigs delighted in the omnipresent mud that swamped the unkempt streets. This was New Houston. Now, the original plan for the Capitol was quite ambitious, particularly for a new town. It would be erected on a government square called Congress Square, bounded by Milam and Travis, between Prairie and Congress. This is where Market Square Park is today. For reasons that are lost to history but probably related to money and time, that plan was scrapped and construction on a large 2-story Capitol at the corner of Texas and Maine began. The Congress was to meet on May 5, 1837, and Audubon describes its appearance during his visit there right about that time. Quote, "The floors, benches, and tables of both houses of Congress were as well saturated with water as our clothes had been in the morning." Close quote. The new Capitol remained roofless and unfinished when the first Congress met. A single-story temporary building, complete with a roof, had been thrown up to give them a dry meeting place. Located on Main Street, it was a long, skinny building, the length of a full block. On one end of the building, the Senate of the Republic met. On the other end, in a much larger room, the House of Representatives met. And then the space in between those two chambers, rooms were partitioned off for the various departments of government. Eventually, Thomas Ward finished the 2-story Capitol at Texas and Main Street, constructed from lumber imported from the state of Maine. The Republic would rent the building from the city for $5,000 a year. Now, as I said, Houston was a primitive place. Sure, you could drink there, and there was a jail to house you if you got rowdy after guzzling too much grog. There were few basic amenities of civilization beyond that. In December 1837, Congress approved an act to procure enough cisterns to provide the Capitol building with 10,000 gallons of fresh water, because there were no waterworks yet, and Congress thought potable water wasn't too much to ask. In fact, much of the development of early Houston arose from its need to provide Congress and visiting dignitaries just some basic human comfort. After some political tug-of-war and a change in president, in 1839 the capital of the Republic was moved to Waterloo in central Texas, soon to be called Austin. The Capitol building of the Republic in Houston was repurposed and fitted out as a hotel, aptly named the Old Capitol Hotel. Now, many proprietors held a lease on the building for the next 4 decades, but it always stayed a hotel. Interestingly, in 1854, Jacob de Cordova attempted to broker a sale of the building. Cordova is an interesting guy who probably warrants a video all on his own. He was a Spanish Jew who was born in Jamaica. He speculated in Texas lands. He wrote successful immigrants' guides, published newspapers, and made one of the earliest and best maps of Texas after statehood in the 1840s. Now, whether he facilitated a sale of the old Capitol or not, I can't say. The Texas coast was slammed by a hurricane in September 1854, and Cordova sort of stopped advertising the building after that. Now, the building may have been damaged, but we know it definitely survived the storm. Cordova's ads give us an idea of what the interior of the place was like. It had a saloon measuring 63 feet by 35 feet. That's 2,200 square feet of saloon space. It had, of course, a separate dining room and 33 bedrooms with finished, plastered walls, which was a fancy thing for Houston at the time. 2 large cisterns supplied fresh water for the hotel, and the stables had a separate cistern to water the horses. In early 1855, Henry Van Bibber was the new proprietor of the hotel. In 1857, the lease passed to Thornton Thatcher. The hotel had always had stables out back, but during Thatcher's tenure, the new proprietor of the stables did more than just tend to the horses of hotel guests. He also bought and sold horses and carriages. In addition to his livery services, he'd buy or auction off your land, your furnishings, your watch, or your slaves if you so desired. So part livery, part pawn shop, part slave auction, right at the old Capitol Hotel. Another blight on Thatcher's lease came in the form of a visit from Anson Jones. In January 1858, President Jones, the Republic's last president, took a room at the old Capitol Hotel. He was losing in politics, he wasn't feeling well, he was restless and planning to move away from his plantation and into the city so his kids could get an education. He told a friend he had begun his political career in the old Capitol building and was considering ending it there. He said it twice, the friend ignored him, and then Jones did just that. He took his life in the old Capitol with a self-inflicted gunshot wound at about 3 a.m., January 9th, 1858. The next proprietor, a man named Harn, tried to sublet the whole hotel so that he could bug out and head to Virginia at the onset of the Civil War. Then in the late 1860s, the Capitol name was retired completely and the old Capitol building became the Enterprise House, still a hotel. By 1878, it was the Barnes House, and it stayed the Barnes House until the day it died. In May 1881, news spread across Texas that the old frame building that had served as the Capitol in Houston was in the process of being demolished. At the same time, the real Capitol building, the present Capitol building in Austin, was destroyed by fire. A new one was planned for Austin, and a new hotel was being built in Houston on the ground where the old Capitol Hotel stood. The new 5-story Victorian hotel, simply called the Capitol Hotel, rose up on the footprint of the old Capitol. It opened October 30th, 1882, and had room for 500 guests. It boasted electric bells, separate elevators for guests and their baggage, and it even had telephones. William Marsh Rice bought the property in 1886, adding a 3-story annex to it. When Rice was murdered in 1900, the hotel transferred ownership to the Rice Institute, later to be Rice University. They renamed it the Rice Hotel, of course. Jesse Jones then leased the place from the Rice Institute and in partnership with the college, raised the Rice Hotel and built a new Rice Hotel in 1913. 17 stories, a concert hall, a rooftop deck, and 4 restaurants. It was the pinnacle of luxury. Eventually, the rooftop deck on the 17th floor was enclosed to create an 18th floor, and this became the home of the Petroleum Club of Houston. The new Rice Hotel had a long, storied life, additions, remodelings, foreclosure dramas, until downtown loft apartments became fashionable in the 1990s. Its renovation brought changes that restored its public spaces to their 1913 aesthetic splendor. Rice Lofts was born and remains to this day, now simply called Rice, on the spot of the 1837 Capitol of the Republic of Texas. So what other buildings can you think of that have storied pasts and ties to the Republic? Let me know down in the comments. We're always looking for new subjects to study and to share, and I bet you can think of a couple. Until next time, God in Texas, y'all.